All right. Well, I have a little bit of an issue that I want to voice and definitely need to get out there. And that has to do with state machines in GameMaker Studio 1.4x and subsequently Undertale Mod Tool. So it should be useful to know for both for users of both programs. What I've seen a lot, right, is we're going to create a step event here for any object in the game that has states, different states it needs to be in, right? So what people do, what I've seen a lot of, is if state 1, right? Then they do their code, then they do else if state equals 2, you know? And they keep doing else if, else if, else if. This annoys the hell out of me. One, because if you have tons and tons and tons of code in here, right, for every step, or for every state, it gets to be a real pain to read. Especially in Undertale Mod Tool, where you don't have things like comments, right, to denote what certain things are and to help separate things from each other. And then it's just, or in the case of GameMaker Studio 1, where the game itself has been decompiled, you know, you don't have comments in that case either. So this becomes to be a real pain. The other situation I've seen, right, is popularized by Sean Spalding, and he proposed to use a switch statement with a state variable that stores each of your states, and then you have case statements in between, and then this would be where your code goes. Oops. You know, that's where your code is for each state. Which is fine, right? This is a lot better than else if, but the only way to really organize that is to create scripts and put all the code in there. And then in here you would call a specific script. Well, this works, and it's kind of the basis of what I want to get at, because the problem with this, right, is then you have to name the script like your object's name. We should probably use function formatting, and then the exact state it's in, state 1, you know? This is what you do. This is annoying, because now these names are super long and it becomes a pain in the butt to write. So instead, what should be done is something completely different, and it should involve using the UserDefined Events. Where would those be? I'm so not used to GameMaker Studio 1 anymore. Yeah, right here, user-defined. You have 15 events, which is more than you'll need for most things, right? So, and the way I say this should be done is you create a bunch of scripts, as many states as you're likely to need for your game, and then you define them as user 1 or user 0, right? And then in here you call is it user defined event user. You either do that, or you just say event SCR user, and then it would be argument, and then that would be the script you call. And you do it this way, right? Because if you create another script, so if you have a state that gets used between a lot of objects that you don't necessarily want to put into parent and child situations, you create a script for it and then just call it. And then in your step event, right, you would just call, you would have a variable that stores the names of each of your steps or states, and then call upon those depending on what state it's in. Well, then how would you set that up, right? Well, first we'll do create event. Chuck some code in here for now. We'll probably put this in a script later. The way you'd store these is you'd create a DS map and you'd store that under your states variable. Right? And then all of your state names will get stored there. So then in your step event, what you do is you have a current state, or just call it state. Name it as a string. Called default for now. So then you go DS map, find value, states, and the current state. And what this will do is return the function, right, which would probably be this SCR user or whatever function that you've given it instead. But how do you populate that? Well, it'd be states dot add, or no, ds map add states. The key would be the name of the state, so like called default for now, and then SCR user. Yeah, this is why you need it to be separate scripts for each of them. So I'll open this back up. You can't have arguments in here, doesn't seem like. Yeah, it doesn't seem like you can really have arguments here. Or you could, you just have a... You just expand upon the system to have other arguments, but for now, for the sake of simplicity, right? Let's call it 0. Right? So then you have your state, and all you have to do is it's script execute func. So what this does is it returns this stores the ID for each state under a name. And then what this does is it finds the ID dependent on the current name you have, right? Because this is a variable, it gets set depending on the situation it's in. And then it just executes that script. That's all you do for the step event. The step event is done, right? That's it. Well, as with all DS as with all data structures, what you want is to delete them when you no longer need them. Which is the only real downside, is because you have to delete them. I think that's the only one, right? Or room end, game end. Yeah, you want to throw it in a bunch of places in this. This is why this needs to be a script. Room end. I'm going to take this. We'll throw it in script. Oh, that's not the name field. State machine destroy. Throw that in there. Can I just copy the name? Yes, I can. Sweet. So then you go into destroy event, right? Throw it in a chunk of code. Same with room end. But in room end, you'd want if not persistent. Right. This is the downside of Game Maker Studio 1. Is you have to, quite a few downsides here, but once this is all set up, right, this is all like copy paste one line code, right? And if you have like, say you have an enemy parent object, right, this is your enemy parent object. Once you have the room end and the game end and the destroy, all you have to do is parent it, parent whatever, or all your child objects will have these already, so you don't have, it's like you only have to code it once. So then this would be put into a script as well. That's not the name field. I on it. I can type. So yeah, then default. I guess that can be put in there too. Reduces it all down to single lines of code. Right? And then this would be thrown into a script as well. That's not the name field. One of these days I'll get it. And that's it. And then after this, right, if you have a bunch of other states, it's ds map add, then your states, right? States variable, whatever the hell you want to name it, and give it a function. So that's the whole state machine right there. These three scripts are the entire state machine. And then when you want to add a state, you just go to other, user define, you know, you have 15 functions here, essentially. And you throw your code in here. Just draw a rectangle just to show it's working. We'll go into room test and we'll throw the tutorial object and right in here. I should probably define a color, huh? Hehe. I guess maybe that should be in the draw event. Draw. And then just to prove that it's working, right? I'll set draw set color to something else just to prove it. And there's the blue rectangle. It's blue square. Right, there you go. That's how it works. Once this SCR user script has been defined, you only have to define it once. And then, this is done specifically, like I'm gonna reiterate, this is done specifically so that you can call other scripts in this system. Because if you call event user, like I did here, inside the run script, if you call it event user here, or you put event user in there, then you'd have to have you'd have to have a way to add arguments to this. But that would get a little bit more complex. You'd have to have another DS map that follows the same naming format, and then you'd have a function for. In fact, you know what? I'll do it right now. I'll add that. I'll add that functionality. So we'll create a script. State machine add. And then, so in the init, define states, state default, and then what we'll do is this. Pull that out. Actually, we'll just pull this out. And we'll put this as blank. Yes map add, and instead of event user, it'd be argument. Argument 0. So I'll add that, and then you'll have your so you have your states, and then so we'll have two arguments. We'll have func equals argument 0, and then we'll have args so states oh, my music died. I've been doing this a little too long. I think that might be right. I haven't done this before. I haven't, because to me it just seemed easier to just create a bunch of 15 scripts that all did one thing. But this is essentially what you'd do. Ideally, you'd want to separate this out. You'd have states, right? And then the states would return an array. You could probably just store it as a single map that stores arrays. Yeah, stores a single map that stores arrays. We have that, and then ESMap add argument 0 will be that, and then this would be argument 1. Argument count is greater than 1. Oops. Oops. Gosh, I am so bad. Okay, caps lock. 0. Array. Oh. That gets confusing, so I'll just throw that at the end. I equals 1 instead, because we're starting this at the second argument, because argument 1 is going to be a string. Don't need this here, actually. Yeah, this is fine the way it is. And so is this. Now we throw this in run, actually. Our func dsmap find value. Duh, I'm an idiot. We need that there. Because you have the name, then the function, and the argument. And then in here, you'll have if argument count is equal to 1. No, not argument count. We'll get this, right? And then we'll say if func array length, I think it was 1D, yeah. Func greater than 1. Because so we get an array, if it's greater than 1, then we don't need this. And we'll say else. And that's where your normal script execute is. I'm just trying to figure it out at the moment. So give me a second. Figuring it out live on air. We'll take this. So now we have the array of arguments, and we just need to pass those in. To the script. I'm doing it as an array. Maybe just one argument. We'll just call it arg. arg equals or func one. Yeah. We don't even need that. We can just say func0, func1. Yeah, we don't need a bunch of that. Argument count is greater than 2. Because you always have two arguments. You have the name and the function. But then if you have a third argument, so we'll say if argument count is equal to 3, we'll say zero equals argument 1 and then argument 2. There. I hate this about GameMaker. It always complains when you try to initialize an array like that. So here we go. So find the state. It'll see how long the array is. Right? I got this wrong. Oh, you know what? I don't need to do that. I can just do this. Damn it. Damn. There. Create an array, set the first element to be argument 1, and then if arguments is equal to 3, greater than, we'll say greater than, now equal to 3. And we'll add argument 2 to array 1, and then give it the array. Now, if is greater than 2, 1, 1. I don't need that either. We can just say func2. There. So now this SCR user can just be argument user. We can rename that as well to just event user. SCR user or whatever. Or whatever, you know. And then so that creates it, and then in the object, we will, in the create event, add a SCR state machine default. We'll say and then we will set the default state equals, that should work. Keyword should. And we'll go over it if it's correct or not. Nope. DS add, or state machine add. State's not set before reading it. That's why, because I renamed this. Hehe. Whoops. Find value func equals the state if array length is equal to 2, 3, 2, 2. I have too many there. And this is 0 and this is 1. And there we go. It works. So now if I go back into tutorial and I add event other user defined one, just to prove that it's working and then there's no BS going on. We'll set this to C red. So, fun fact, if you put 3 slashes, it'll appear. Should, yeah, it will appear right there. And then in the create event, we will say, we'll call this blue. Set the state to blue. CR. Add. And then, yeah. So it says, so I set it to blue. We'll go red, just to prove that it's still working. And there it's red. So yeah, this is a better way to handle state machines. Everything's all separated. If you have your big states, all the code for one state is all split apart and easy to read. You're not relying on switch statements, and it's all in a script that's easily readable. I will have these up for download in the description so that people can copy paste it if they feel like they need to, or expound upon it if they think they found a better way. But yeah, hopefully people will start doing a little bit better code with the classic Game Maker Studio and whatnot. And all of you have a good one.